Hi everyone, so welcome to week 2. I wanted to go over briefly in these set of notes what's due and just so you're on the same page before I see you in class on Thursday. Once again, if you didn't go through, make sure you're going through the general course information. I'm always adding to this. Particularly the notes on using the discussion boards are really, really important because discussion boards in all different kinds of formats are going to drive how we work this semester. So you're going to want to make sure you really, really go through those to make sure your files are uploading okay or you're recording in the right way that you're supposed to according to the directions in there. Again, I have syllabus notes here, your syllabus is located here, and other really helpful resources are going to be in this tab, which you can always close like this too. Now, I know week 1 was a little confusing and it's a lot, but we're going into week 2. So my hope for you right now is that I'm going to go through all of these directions and what's exactly due, along with give you an outline for our readings. And so you'll know exactly what to have with you and what exactly to do for this week. And I'll be checking in individually with each one of you because, you know, that we're off to our second week right now. We want to make sure everyone's on the same page. So the first thing you should do is read the directions and notes for this week, and you should be listening along to these notes. You can do this at the same time. So our week goes from today, the 31st, through Sunday, September 6th. And this week we're really going into diving into these other areas in our text and just talking about, you know, other issues that kind of come up and really impact our learning and our discussion. We have a couple different readings for this week. What you want to do is make sure that you're live for our synchronous session. Most of you will be in class. We have a couple people learning remotely. Again, this is mandatory. This counts for your attendance. So you want to make sure and listen to and watch all the notes for week 2. You want to complete the week 2 discussion board by Wednesday, September 2nd. You want to follow the rubric there and make sure that when you have to give comments back and feedback to your classmates, you're doing so in a way that's going to earn you credit. You want to go in and complete our Flipgrid activity for this week, okay? Make sure you create a login or log in with your Outlook email. This is a little short activity, more interactive. You're going to complete your reading response by Saturday, September 5th, and then complete the survey for this week. Now we have a couple readings. We're in this section called Human Nature, which is really cool, and it's all about thinking about like the motives and actions of both the body and the mind of individuals. It can get really philosophical. I don't want to let that, don't let that deter you. Do your best when you're reading. It is totally okay if you don't understand everything when you're reading. You're not supposed to. But when you're putting together your response, try to find a couple different points, quotes, passages that stand out to you, so that you have a couple discussion points to go off of. I do not expect you to understand everything. It takes me a couple times to read through, but that's why it's really, really important to just keep reading and to make your notes and to do the best that you can. So our 2 readings from the book this week are from Mencius, Man's Nature is Good, which starts on page 65, and Sun Tzu from Man's Nature is Evil. So you've got two conflicting readings here. So you should have both of these read before our session on Thursday. You're going to be working with them on Wednesday, this week for your, regular readings. They're not long. Do your best, like I said, to get through them and to formulate your response because we're going to talk about them in class and do some activities with that. We also have a really, really interesting TED Talk from Manuel Lima that you're going to be just watching and completing an activity on. You can access that here. You just click on this, or you can go through the outside reading tab in the module for this week. So this is everything that's due and when I'll be seeing you in person. So to go through that, and here is where you'll find our week 2 discussion board. And this is where you'll put together your recordings. Again, you're going to add your video. Please, 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 please watch the directions on how to add your video up here to make it easier and you're not having issues with uploading, downloading, etc. Your responses are due by Wednesday, September 2nd, and then you need to be in conversation with your peers throughout the rest of the week. This is really important. Not many of you, I don't know if you didn't understand this, but I'll go over it again during class this week. This does not mean you have to respond to everyone, but it does mean that you want to be engaging and just learning from each other. And I'm going in and commenting, giving feedback too. I put a couple different questions up here that you can think about as you're coming up with your video response, but certainly you can add as many other things in as you like, or, not like, or, etc. Put in your own thoughts related to the readings too. So that's one of your discussions. The other thing is your Flipgrid activity, which you'll log into. It's just a little fun activity. A survey at the end of the week that you'll take, and your reading responses and feedback. So at the end of this week, you can see you're going to submit a written response to your readings from your own understanding. 2 to 3 pages where you just can get your own opinion out. You can, especially after we've talked about everything, and you kind of have a better idea of sort of like what's been happening, you can talk about your first 2 weeks of readings in here and just sort of your viewpoints or your ideas or your discussions on kind of where you're coming to. You can use your own opinions, thoughts. You can use the I perspective. It's just kind of like a check-in point for yourself. It also helps you keep really good track of like what you're doing and what you're looking at, especially when we get through a lot more of these readings too. And then, of course, we have the links right here where you can access the TED Talk that I mentioned, which is a really good one. It's called A Visual History of Human Knowledge. So definitely watch that as soon as you can, because I think you'll really, really enjoy that. So I mentioned there's 2 readings for this week that we're looking at. Man's nature is good and man's nature is evil. And I have an interesting chart that I'm going to post to you to help you kind of think about this. When you're looking at Mencius and, he's talking about this innate good, he's still considered to be one of the most important figures in Confucianism. Of course, Confucius is kind of like the top notch with that. But because Confucius' teachings were super vague on the subject of good and evil, and like the idea of talking about good and evil sometimes is really interesting, but also super abstract. Basically, Mencius thinks that all men are born good, and with time and training, you can become perfect, so that you've got these good qualities you're already born with. He thinks that people who are left to their original nature, or if you follow your gut feelings, you're able to do good. He doesn't think people are not naturally inclined to do evil. And if they do, he thinks they're doing things, evil things, bad things because of their upbringing. And he talks about this in the 4 beginnings. And these different traits that he mentions up here, like commiseration, shame, dislike, obedience, compliance, right and wrong. He thinks that a person without these traits isn't really a person at all. On the other side, when we're looking at Sun Tzu, and there's even some more different viewpoints. Your book only mentions a little bit of Cao Su, but I want to go over here to Sun Tzu because there's this idea of this innate evil, that basically Sun Tzu's philosophies contradict all of those of Mencius and have a really big effect on the Chinese legal system too. So he thinks that like man's nature is always selfish. He says that every man is born with feelings of envy and hatred, with desires of eyes and the ears. He thinks that if human beings indulge their nature, that their lives would be difficult, and anyone who will do so inevitably will become a criminal. So he very much disagrees with Mencius in all of his sort of reasoning. He doesn't think that man's good acts are a result of their conscious effort rather than their nature. He thinks that nature is what's given from heaven, and he doesn't think you can learn something or acquire it through effort. So he very much disagrees with Mencius in saying that good acts are a result of conscious effort rather than their nature. So this is very much opposed to both sides here. And I think we can look, it's really interesting just to kind of like see these varying good points and talk a little bit more about human nature. I think especially to this day when we have been spending so much time with, each other, with close-knit family members, with so forth. And so when we talk about innate acts of like good versus evil, I think you even want to go back and maybe even define, what does good and evil sort of mean to you? What does human nature even mean to you? And going off of these couple different viewpoints here, are any of them even still ringing true to this very, very day? So that's just a little kind of tip to sort of help you get started here. And I'll add some more notes this week to kind of help you. But please let me know if you have any questions whatsoever, and we'll make sure to get you on the same page.